Hello, my name is Stephanie Stegan, and this is my capstone presentation. The title of my action research is The Impact of Social Emotional Learning on Student Behavior Incidents. The purpose for this action research was that behavior incidents were on the rise at Challenger Elementary. Students would be removed from the classroom, missing instructional time. We had implemented a positive behavior intervention system, but yet this was not causing a decrease in behavior referrals. So I wanted to see if using a social emotional learning curriculum and using those kinds of strategies would have a better impact upon the student's behavior. So my research question was, what kind of impact does implementing social emotional learning strategies have on student behavior incidents? And my rationale for this was that if these strategies worked in the classroom, helped the students to be able to have something to be able to self-regulate, to monitor their behavior, and to help problem solve, then maybe this would decrease students being removed from the classroom. And then by teaching these lessons, we could incorporate it school-wide. And so teachers would have strategies to help the students, to teach the students, to help them improve their own social emotional skills. So this study was conducted at Challenger Elementary in the Huntsville City School District. We use a software program called Bloom to track our behaviors. This requires that we do have an intervention system before we move on to a discipline referral. We had also implemented a positive behavior intervention system, PBIS. However, all of these things were not causing a decrease in discipline referrals. And so I began to think about it and talked to my principal about it. And we thought that maybe adding some of those social emotional strategies through the open circle curriculum, that would be another way to lower behavior incidences. So the demographics were, like I said, Challenger Elementary in Huntsville, Alabama, Huntsville City Schools. It's an urban school. About 500 students consistently attend Challenger Elementary. We serve pre-K through 5th grade. The population is 58% white, 17% Black, 15% Hispanic, and 10% other. Our free and reduced population is 35%. And the study that we did focused on the 2nd grade population, the year before implementation, year 1 of implementation, and year 2 of implementation, which was approximately 85 students per year. So whenever I wanted to do this, I went to the literature to see what the research was. And there were several sources that gave me reason to want to implement this program. So behavior, we know as teachers, affects your everyday classroom. And teachers say that classroom, the biggest barrier to effective instruction is students' behavior. Normally, they are removed from the classroom, and so we know that this affects their academic instruction, and in the long term could cause serious academic issues. And lots of schools were looking to something like social emotional learning to help decrease that and to increase behavior learning. So the skills taught through social emotional learning, they are self-regulation strategies and problem-solving strategies that help students use real-world interactions and real-world problems to develop empathy. The primary focus is to get them to regulate their own behavior, to be able to identify those emotions. And these lessons need to be taught explicitly to the students. You know, socialization and social skills used to kind of be a hidden curriculum, but whereas we're seeing now that students really need to be taught explicitly. These are the steps that we take to problem solve. This is how we can get our anger under control. The outcomes of the implementation the research showed that elementary students benefit the most. The first year of implementation does usually show some decreases, but most of all, it increased the students' ability to be able to interact with each other. And like I said before, show empathy and self-regulate. And they do assist students that are causing behavior issues, because a lot of times the reason those behaviors are showing out are because the students don't know how to manage what's going on inside. So my method and study design was a qualitative and quantitative design. I wanted to focus on second grade students because I was teaching second grade at that time. I wanted to look back at the year before, the year during, and then second year implementation. For our quantitative data, I used Bloom reports to track the behavior incidences. And the second grade teachers had to attend professional development to be able to implement this program. That was kind of a requirement of the curriculum. However, we only attended one day as opposed to 3 days. We focused the lessons, despite all of the curriculum and all that it had, we really focused our lessons on problem solving, self-regulation, identifying emotions, and responding to conflict. The goal was to see lower numbers and to see what that impact would have. And at the end, using my qualitative data, I surveyed the second grade teachers to see exactly how, to what level they implemented the program in their classroom. So the analysis of the implementation was that second grade teachers, we incorporated this in informal discussions and in informal meetings about how often we were teaching the explicit lessons, what lesson we were on in the curriculum. The survey was given at the end to determine their attitude and their fidelity in the time spent in the curriculum. The time frame, as I said before, was year before, during, and year 2, which was school year 2017-18 up until 2019-20. And the numbers in our last year are most likely skewed because of the COVID-19 pandemic and releasing the students basically one 9 weeks earlier and not getting those additional data. My findings were with the Bloom reports that the year before implementation, 24% of the behavior referrals were from second grade. Year 1 of implementation was 20%. So we did go down a little bit. And then 2019, 2020, we were down to 2%. However, we have to keep in mind that due to COVID-19, we did lose the 9 weeks. And then the behavior referrals, that was the percentages before. This is the actual number of referrals for second grade. 2017-18, year before, was 21 referrals. Year 1 was 18-19 was 13. And year 2, 2019-20 was 2 referrals. Again, go back to COVID-19 for those, for that low number. Now, when I did survey the teachers, they felt like they did not feel adequately trained to fully implement the Open Circle curriculum, but did take those lessons of problem solving where we focused and really did hone in on those. And they did feel in the long run that they were beneficial to the students, helpful in the classroom, that they were very important. They felt like that they saw the students using those strategies in the classroom more and more. And it is reflected in the Bloom reports that there were lower numbers of referrals. So my conclusions are that in response to what is the impact of an SEL strategy in the classroom is that the Bloom numbers did go down, and the impact of the lessons and strategies were positive for the students. The teachers felt like the students really were developing some coping skills through this explicit teaching, and that implementation does have an effect on the impact, and that focusing on those very specific strategies was very important, so that we weren't teaching a new lesson every single day, but just honing in on those and repeating those problem solving skills so that the students knew them and were able to implement them in their own lives with other students and their peers. Again, COVID-19 could have, and I'm sure, impacted the data for that last year. So teaching, the implications of this are that teaching these strategies to students through explicit lessons would absolutely benefit teachers, students, and the entire school. The lessons need to be targeted and focused and specific and age appropriate, and implementation, everyone needs to be on board. Attitude is huge. Consistency needs to be addressed so that it is being across the board. And so due to this research, more implications are that I find SEL strategies highly valuable in the classroom. I teach kindergarten now. I continue to use these strategies daily with my students and teach these lessons. I know that SEL is kind of controversial right now. Some people don't want it taught, but I do believe that if stakeholders and administrators and policyholders would research it, that they would determine that it is beneficial. And especially now with students coming back into the classroom after the pandemic, having lost social skills time with their peers and kindergartners and young ones having not ever even had that and coming into a social setting, I do believe that these strategies need to be taught explicitly to the students. These are my references that I used about implementation and the effectiveness of SEL. This is the open circle survey that I gave to the second grade teachers, just asking how they felt about implementing it and what was their attitude towards the program. These are some of the standards. I just want to point out a few: ensuring that students are treated fairly, developing student policies that address student misconduct in a positive way, recognizing student strengths and diversities, maintaining and building a safe, caring, and healthy environment for students, and cultivating and reinforcing student engagement in school for a positive student conduct. My second plan that I did that I wanted to share with you today is my diversity plan from IL 552, Diversity in Education. The reason that I think that this plan is so important and that this was so important is that I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and it's a very diverse city that is growing every day. I believe that educators and leaders need to develop relationships. I believe that relationships are the lifeblood of education, and that without them, we really can't go any further. And I believe that we need to understand diversity. To be able to do that, we need to have an understanding of the population that we serve, and the families need to feel accepted and valued in our communities. So the three goals of my diversity plan are to promote diversity among teachers and staff, develop educational opportunities for all students to learn, and establish relationships within the community. So for one, to promote diversity, I would like to develop relationships with universities to be able to recruit all kinds of teachers from different races, genders, ethnicities, and abilities, create a mentor teacher program, not just for first and second year teachers, but for all teachers to be able to learn from each other and the differences that we all have, provide professional development on diversity and multicultural education and funds of knowledge that really go into the community to learn about the family and what kind of knowledge they bring to the table for us, professional development in social emotional curriculum and restorative practices, and then also to create a multicultural team to review curriculum, to create a diversity reading list so that students see representation of themselves in the stories that they're learning and in the things that they're learning in the classroom, because representation matters. So my next goal is to develop students, to develop the students that are growing and learning, to nurture that with small group before and after school for those that aren't performing at benchmark, to consistently review the data and make adjustments to the curriculum, to create multicultural learning opportunities, reading those books and bringing in those holidays and doing all of those things and showing all of those, utilize the social emotional curriculum to have a more inclusive culture, focus on the positive behaviors and restorative practices, and utilize ELL strategies across the curriculum, because all of those strategies will help all of our learners, especially our learners that are behind in reading or math. They would all benefit from these things. My goal 3 is to establish relationships. And like I said earlier, to me, relationships are the lifeblood of education. And so we need to establish relationships within our community. We need diverse tutors to come in and be with all of our students. We need to reach out to stakeholders to create mentors, a diverse group of mentors for our students. We need to provide all information in English and Spanish. And if we have other languages, see how we can get that information in their native language. Also provide opportunities for cultural groups and communities to come into the school and to participate and to plan activities for our students. And then to have a parent liaison to support communication between the schools and the parents, just to know that we are on their side. I want to close with this from Banks and Banks, this quote. I just felt like it really stuck with me in a time when our society seems so divided and so culturally divided about just about everything. As educators, we need to acquire ideology and the conception, a multicultural ideology and conception of the United States. And then we know that then we can view the experiences and contributions of a wide range of cultural, ethnic, language, and religious groups as significant to the development, because we all matter. Everyone matters, representation matters, and we all need, as educators, we need to be open to all of that. These are my references for this project. The AL-IL standards for this go along with a lot of the SEL ones to promote and the preparation of students to live productively in a diverse culture, to act with cultural competence, to address matters of equity, to be approachable and accessible to the families of the community, and to engage in regular and open two-way communication. I believe that these are very, very important. And that is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good day.